friends, thank you so much for stopping by for today's video. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Kat. I love to share about the romance novels that I read here on my channel. If you like to read romance and you like this video, I would love to have you as a subscriber. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up button. If you like the video, it really does help my channel and the authors whose books I talk about on my channel. Today, let me tell you, not only is this one of the most emotional books that I have ever read, I don't want to give a spoiler. And if I talk about a big part of the plot in this video, you're gonna know what happens. And I never want to share too much or too little about the books that I share with you. I want to entice you to read the books. I want more people to read these amazing authors that I am fortunate enough to read. That goes especially for today's author, which is Dyan Layne. It is her Red Door series, book 4, The Other Brother. This is Dylan's story, Dylan's book finally. I have been waiting for Dylan's book since the first book, which was Serenity. Of course, there was Affinity and also Maelstrom. I will include those videos in the description bar below so you can go check those out as well. And because this is book 4, keep that in mind, well, no, actually, this is probably the only time that you're not going to get a spoiler about a previous book. Well, actually, you might a little bit because it is the 4th book. You know, I just want to make sure that you are aware that I do talk in detail about the characters and the plot of the book, which is what made today's video hard for me to prepare for because there's so much I want to talk about. But I can't tell you. But I want to tell you because, oh my gosh, and I'm already getting all filled up. I was a blubbering mess through a lot of this book. If you're here as one of Dyan's fans already, you will have seen the trailer. You will know that this book is about grief, loss, the loss of a loved one, and finding your new way in life that goes not only for Dylan in this book, but also for the family that surrounds him. They are all affected by the loss and they're so tight-knit. And I really, this is going to sound strange, but I really was almost like excited to see how Dyan was going to write that. I feel like she's written, honestly, some of the most beautiful relationships I've ever read in books. To be able to get this other dynamic, this life dynamic that happens to us and we have to live through as people. You know, we lose people in our lives. So I was excited to see how the group was going to handle it. I am not going to share with you who passes away. I think you already know that somebody passes away, so that's not a spoiler. I am not going to share anything about any of that because, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. And you might get a spoiler someplace else, but I'm not getting on that bandwagon. I'm just not doing that. I have a true love and a deep sense of respect for Dyan and the world she's created. And so I want to add to that with this book. I don't want to detract and spill the beans. So the book starts and we already know it's about Dylan. Hello, the cover. Whew. And then in the trailer, the most recent trailer, we get to see Tommy the model, kind of, in his character, so to speak. Oh gosh. She just ticks all of my boxes with these books. And I didn't even know I had those boxes and I found them. So I loved seeing Dylan, who she thought Dylan was, on the cover. And oh my gosh, yes, that is Dylan on the cover. Of course, I'm going to put the cover up so you guys can see that while we're talking about it. And I was anxious to get to Dylan's story. I have such a soft place, I think, as many Dyan fans do, for Dylan. I want the best for him. I want him to get his great love. I want him to get everything he deserves. And he does in this book. That's the beautiful part to this book, is that he does get being in the lowest place that he could ever be in to finding this great love and being able to come back from that. And that's really what I'm going to focus on, because this is Dylan's book and this is about Dylan and what happened and how it affected him and how he has to figure out how to carry on with his life after loss. And okay, kind of cheated. I went through the playlist before I started the book. I had my suspicions about what I thought might happen. I hoped that it wasn't going to be what I thought it was. And it kind of was. And so I was excited for myself that I connect with her books that much and knew kind of maybe that was going to be it, but also really sad because I didn't want it to happen. But oh my gosh, let me tell you, at one point in the playlist when I'm scrolling through, Danny Boy, that old Irish song that, like, if you're Irish like I am, like, everyone knows Danny Boy. And oh, I saw that and I just, oof, immediately I got tears in my eyes and I was like, oh crap, who's it gonna be? I know it's gonna be somebody I'm not gonna be happy about any of it, no matter who it is. But anyway, definitely go check out the playlist. And then the very beginning, Dyan, like the first page, this is what Dyan wrote. And I just was like, my heart was just in my throat and I was very nervous. Things happen as they're meant to. There's no avoiding your destiny. Dylan Byrne always believed in fate. He would meet someone, fall in love, be a family, all in that order. Sometimes fate has other plans. Life changes in an instant. Love is lost. But how do you let go of the life you once had? To appreciate the magic of a brand new beginning, you have to make peace with the ending first. Endings are never easy, but a beautiful beginning is destined to follow, isn't it? And just maybe out of sorrow, joy can grow. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm already like gonna cry. Yeah, you guys, I'm not kidding you when I say like this book was one of the most emotional books I've ever read. It's true. And I have to say that a common friend said that reading this book changed her. And I have to agree with her. I loved being back with the group, seeing where they've gone. I just love them all so much. And so it was really like going home. I wanted to know, okay, Dylan, where are you? In the beginning of the book, he is in kind of an interesting place. He sees how everyone else, not everyone, but how a lot of them that they in their little family, it's not so little anymore because people have gotten married, people are having children, they have significant others. He's a little annoyed because he's like, where are my guys? You know, his brother, Kyan, Brendan, Jesse, Taylor, like these are his guys, right? The Venery boys. And he's like, not necessarily the Venery boys, but Jesse, Taylor, Brendan, Kyan, they're all like hooked up. They're all married. They've all got kids. And he's like, here I am. I don't want to talk about birthday parties. I don't want to talk about breastfeeding. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I don't want to hear about any of this. Like, and then in the same part, he wants all of that. He's like, okay, he is dating a girl. Her name's Kelsey. And he's like, okay, well, like, I'm really going to make a go of it with her. Is she the one? If we last until New Year's, like, I might pop the question. And I thought to myself, and I don't know, maybe this is the romantic in me, but I was like, Dylan, honey, like, you deserve so much more than that. he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll try it out with Kelsey. I was like, dude, I want you to be in love and excited to marry the person you marry, not like, well, if we make it till New Year's, you know what I mean? So he's in kind of a funny place. He sees everyone moving on with life and he feels a little stuck where he is. He does see Kyan and Lynn in a kind of intimate moment. And yes, is he jealous? Yes, of course he's jealous. But it goes to his frame of mind in the beginning of the book about him seeing all this love all around and how it's affecting him and how the people closest to him see that it's affecting him. This is something that he sees. This is an interaction that he sees between Lynn and Kyan. You're so beautiful, baby. With his hands cupping her face, he soundly kissed her. Too intimate of a moment for him to witness, Dylan shifted his sights to Jesse, the expression on his face akin to pity. The guy was a living and breathing empath. He wished he had never admitted his feelings to his cousin all those years ago. Even then, it was already too late. Oh, Jesse. Oh my gosh, you know how I feel about Jesse. Jesse is one of my favorite characters in a book ever. His heart, he has a heart of gold. He wears it on his sleeve. I freaking adore him. And then on the flip side, Brendan. You know how much I love Brendan. And to see them pick up on Dylan's kind of uncomfortableness with that, and yet they know what's going on in his head. It just showed the closeness and the tight-knit relationship that they have with each other, and I really liked that. So bringing up Brendan, this is what he saw with Dylan, and this is a conversation between them. Brendan angled his head and looked at him. You all right, Dill? Besides Kelsey, I mean. Yeah, man. He rubbed the back of his neck. Just effing pissed. I'll get over it. Pissed that he wasted 2 months of effort on someone who didn't deserve his attention or his affection. Pissed that he never could get it quite right. He was the golden boy, wasn't he? That's what they always told him anyway. Charming, enigmatic, a keen mind for business and a body built for pleasure. Dylan was the guy who convinced the prom queen to F him in the bathroom during lunch. Effing he was good at, really good. Relationships, not so much. And then a little bit later, it seemed like he always caught the eye of the wrong girl, or his timing was off with the right one. Too much effort, not enough, too soon, too late. The miserable state of his love life was his own doing, and he knew it. Well, no, not necessarily. It's not his own doing. At one point, Lynn's a reader. She likes to read romance. Go figure. So Dylan walks in the room and she's sitting there reading. And so he asks her, he's like, oh, what are you reading? You know? So this is part of their conversation. And I was like, if this wasn't perfect to us romance readers, I don't know what is. He cupped one side of her face, catching a fallen teardrop with his thumb. No happily ever after? Yes, just not the one I imagined. Why do you read it if it makes you cry? Crying was foreign to him. He genuinely wanted to know. Because it's just so effing good, she sniffled. And I'd much rather cry over fiction than real life. A good ugly cry can be cathartic. Not that you know anything about that. And I was like, little did I know, not too far after that, a good cry. So like I mentioned, if you saw any of Dyan's teasers or trailers, you know that there is great loss in this story. So I am going to continue to share some of my favorite parts, but what I'll do is I'll just not tell you who's saying those things in a way. Try to keep it as ambiguous as possible. There is another character involved that we do hear from a lot. The book is divided into 2 parts. So this great loss has happened. And this is Dylan right after. What comes after? What happens after the shock dissipates and the numbness wears off? What's left then? What word defines that? He should know. He'd been through this before, and more times than he cared to remember. His mother, his father, every aunt and uncle, save for one. But this was them, and it was different. It cut deeper. A fresh hemorrhaging wound to add to all the scars he already carried on his heart. So that's where I just used a different word so you don't know who I'm talking about. And then a little bit later, everything felt wrong and Dyan didn't know how to make it feel right again. Maybe it never would. He couldn't recall a world without them in it, and he couldn't make sense of the one he found himself in. They'd done just about everything together, always had each other, but he didn't have them anymore, and this was his new reality. How was he supposed to exist now? You just do. So much I understood, but I have had great loss in my life. I've talked about that here on my channel. So tapping into that grief again is kind of easy to do, unfortunately. There's some relief knowing that, it's not me going through it, that I'm reading a character doing it, but it immediately took me back to all those feelings that you have after you lose that person. And something that Dyan wrote was, at the moment that this person dies, Dyan doesn't even realize it, but he looked at the clock and he got a feeling. And he was like, okay, that was weird. And then he realized later that this person died at that time. Ooh. It also speaks to how Dyan writes their connection. And at the basis of this story, this whole series is love and connection. And then Dyan talks about having to go through all the firsts without this person. That's really hard. All those holidays, birthdays, they talk about having one less place setting at the table. Oh, that's where it gets to be like, that's where I'm saying it was like one of the most emotional books I've ever read. At one point, they go to the lake house. They all own this lake house that they grew up going to and where they spent time as a family, and they continue to with their own families and each other. And that is very symbolic, I felt like, with that was their gathering place. Sure, they all had their houses on Park Place and they all live kind of in this area together. But the lake house is where they come together as a family and bond and spend time together and barbecue and go out on the lake, and the kids are running around in the backyard and, they're all tanning themselves and, all of those wonderful memories that you would make having a house like that. And a certain person drove them going to the lake house the weekend that they go, that Dyan is talking about at one point. And he says, like, it's really hard for him to be there, but he went because they wanted to go. And he's like having trouble holding it together. But he's also really self-aware of his own feelings in a way, and then their feelings, and trying to juggle making sure everyone else is okay and throwing himself into making sure they're okay. And how he's not completely processing his grief because he has this other job he feels like he has to do in making sure they're okay. And at one point he says, it was too soon for me to be at the lake house. And when he said that, it was like a gut punch. Grief is so personal. It was jarring. And I felt everything he was feeling in that moment. It was too soon for him. But it was also really beautiful for them to be together. And at one point, he has a very sweet moment with Brendan and Katie's son. And this is that moment. Baby Declan was already in his high chair, bringing the little fistfuls of food to his mouth, most of it winding up on his bib or on the floor. When he looked up at Dyan, his face broke into a wide, happy grin, light blue eyes beaming. He felt it then, and he couldn't say why. It only lasted for a moment, but when that baby smiled up at him, he felt it. Joy. Ruffling Declan's ginger curls, Dylan smiled back, thankful he could feel something other than sorrow. Oh my gosh. So sweet. The book is in 2 parts. And at the end of the first part, going into the second part, oh my gosh, this is what Dyan wrote. Things happen as they're meant to. There's no avoiding your destiny. And then she gives us a quote. Grief is in 2 parts. The first is loss. The second is the remaking of life. And I'll put that quote in the comments below because I don't want to get in trouble for anything. But if that wasn't the most perfect description of once you go through it, then you have to learn how to live with it. Learn how to live with the loss of this person. That is the hardest part, is it not? Okay, and this is where I'm going to dance around it, but I felt like this was really important to share about Dylan. So one of the characters is pregnant, and he has been very much a support system to this person during the pregnancy, when the baby is born, and after, and very much in the trenches with this person, helping them. He gets to a point where he has to say to this person, like, I can't keep doing this with you. These characters are each other's soft place to fall. They have an immense amount of trust and love for one another. They are affectionate. They tell each other they love each other. They are open in how they show how much they love each other. The guys and the girls, they have created this family, and so they are in there with each other, trying to help each other through this loss. His heart is involved. Dylan's heart is involved. It becomes involved in this child and this other character's life. He has to stop because he knows that if he doesn't go process the death on his own, and she is allowed to process the death on her own, they will never be able to be together. It will always be in the middle of them. And if they want to have a real shot at love, their own shot, he has to put the brakes on it, and he has to give them space. And I was so actually kind of relieved, because I felt, even though it's a really heavy story, I felt all these warm feelings about how he was supporting them and the support that they were all giving to each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, like if we all dealt with death this way, we would all be okay. And we would get through it okay. And I needed a little drama, and Dylan gave it to us. And this other person gave it to us. And I was glad that they were experiencing it and that Dyan gave it to us, because I needed it. And this is what Dylan says to this other person. But he was daddy in her eyes. He was all that baby knew. Family stays together, just like the moon and the stars. The bracelet on her wrist blurred through her tears. He came back holding the baby. She was smiling, but Dylan's blue eyes were glassy. I love you, but I can't do this. I can't play house with you anymore. When you're ready for the real thing, to have a life with me, his voice cracked, I'll be back. Whew. Brendan, there's a reason why I love him so much. And he says to Dylan, it perfectly summed up their story. He says, their destiny was to love her first. Yours is to love her for the rest of her life. It is exactly what I needed somebody to say to Dylan, because he is struggling and he knows that this person who they lost would never want their loved one to be alone for the rest of their lives. They trusted in their family to take care of them. Those were their last words. And to be able to be given the permission and know that your loved one would want that, and you to be the person to be able to give that to them. And then also the person who lost the partner, I hope you guys are following me, was really beautiful. And it was like so perfect that Brendan said it. You guys, this book, it took me 2 days to sit down and film because every time I thought about it, I started crying. I would highly, highly recommend this book. Please do yourself a favor and read Serenity, Affinity, Maelstrom first. You will love this beautiful family that Dyan has created on these pages. We get a little teaser as to what the next book will be. So interesting. We don't know too much about these next characters she's writing about. They have been around the whole time. So I am anxious to dive into that part of the Red Door world. Let me know if you have read any of Dyan's books. You know I always love to hear. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'm gonna go dry my eyes a little bit now. See you soon. Bye.